by PAX 8. I'm the Director of Strategy at NW Techs. We are an advisory firm focusing and helping small organizations with technology in relation specifically to cybersecurity and other IT-related issues, especially when it comes to things like Microsoft and tools like that are very prevalent in our society and in our organizations. We definitely rely heavily on providers like PAX 8 to give us expertise, but we also hold a lot of expertise internally, and we also use it internally, but also support it across hundreds of users and many organizations. I'm joined by PAX 8, Max and Tom, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you all for jumping on today. This is super, super exciting. My name is Max Ellickson. I, again, work at PAX 8. I'm a productivity solutions consultant. And I guess that's kind of a fancy way of saying I work with Microsoft, and that's kind of the world I live in. I'm in the partner center all day. But PAX 8 is built, with consultants like myself. We partner with companies like Northwest to take care of you guys and our clients as best we can. So PAX 8 is also made up of, obviously, a support team. We've got engineers on our team. Today joining us is Tom Welton. He is a solutions engineer at PAX 8. And we were lucky enough to have him jump on to do a Teams demo towards the end of this presentation. So thank you all for being here. If there is any questions, please put them in the chat. We've got people standing by to answer those or read those. We'll try and get as many as we can answered. Towards the end, we'll do a Q&A. So absolutely, feel free to comment or do any questions in the chat. But yeah, thank you very much, and happy to be here.
Thanks, Max. Yeah, a few other housekeeping items. We will be recording this webinar, so if you are not able to attend the entire event, you will be receiving an email in the next couple of days for you to review the rest of the webinar or pass it along to anybody else in your organization. Max also mentioned if you do have questions throughout the Q&A, feel free to send them in. We will also, looks like we got a great question from Karen. Yes, we will be providing the presentation with the webinar, so you'll be able to watch the entire presentation along with the webinar after if you're not able to attend. That being said, at the end of the webinar, we are doing a live demo. We mentioned that of Teams. So be sure to try to stick through the webinar towards the end because we will be doing a live demo. And in the Q&A portion, we will be reviewing the questions that you guys have already submitted. We received close to over 100 questions and or comments of specific things you guys wanted to hear about today. So we will be including that, some of those questions, especially the ones that we think are most relevant. A quick outlined agenda for today. We'll be talking about why is cloud important. This is a topic many of you already know about, but if you guys are interested in understanding more about the cloud and what's important and why is the cloud, having your infrastructure in the cloud important, we'll be covering the world of Microsoft, what's going on, what are the subscriptions you can have, what are the options available to you. It's quite confusing, as many of you might know, because Microsoft provides so many different solutions. It can be overwhelming sometimes to navigate those. We'll be discussing that. We'll also be discussing SharePoint, OneDrive. We'll be discussing Microsoft Teams. Super excited to talk about that more. We'll be talking about the future of Microsoft, some transitions they're going through in how they word things, represent their products. We'll be doing a live demo of Teams, like I mentioned, and then we'll also be doing a Q&A at the end. First thing I'd love to chat about is why cloud. Many of you, these things are not unfamiliar with you. Many of you know the benefits of being in the cloud. But here's just a few things. 80% of Fortune 500 companies use Microsoft cloud-based solutions. So not only is Microsoft not only can they provide for small to medium-sized organizations, they're working in the enterprise level. So they really have kind of a whole roadmap of solutions depending on how you're scaling and where you're growing to. They also have, as you move to the cloud, your ability to secure things and just have more things be more compliant is easier in a lot of ways. It opens up new challenges, right? Just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean it's not susceptible to attacks. And a server in your office, in the closet in your office, or in the basement in your building, is the same thing as a server in Google or Microsoft, right? However, Google or Microsoft or a lot of these large providers have hundreds of thousands of servers, right? And they're doing this on a large scale where they have the security and capabilities to be able to have that security and compliance in place. Moving to the cloud can also reduce costs. I don't know about you, but maintaining a server on-premise for sharing files or hosting QuickBooks is very time intensive. Ask your IT department or your IT provider, or if you've managed it yourself, maintaining a server for any extent, for any reason, is time intensive. There's very good reasons to have a server, and there's very good reasons to have things on site. But nowadays, especially for small to medium-sized organizations, there's so many more reasons to be in the cloud versus having it on premise, and it's very costly to have an on-premise server. Even when you compare the subscription of buying data or buying storage from Microsoft or Google or Amazon. Next would be improved security, and it's kind of an additional point here of improved security and compliance. It also simplifies IT management. So as an your IT team or your IT provider, if they are however they're managing your IT, it will definitely simplify in some ways their ability to manage things. Like I said, managing a server, you need a level of expertise to manage that. So if you're having an IT team, or if you're hiring a third party like us to do your IT, you need more of us or more of an IT team, because it's just more complex versus having cloud-based. Cloud-based has its own complexity, and you need specialty in that as well. But overall, it has a lot more simplicity to it. And then last but not least, agility and keeps you current. Whether it's Microsoft or whether it's Google or whoever it is, being cloud-based is in a lot of ways the way of the future. So having being transitioned there, if you're not already there, is super important. And once you're there, transitioning to a different provider will be that much easier. Usually the cost is that upfront cost, right? Getting whatever it is you've built on an on-prem server and migrating that to the cloud. And then today specifically, we're going to talk about how SharePoint can help you do that with file sharing and other sorts of organization collaboration. And then OneDrive, and then also Teams, which is another collaboration tool that'll help you eliminate kind of the stress of having on-premise technology, right? That will help you with remote workforce. That will help you with having a less complex infrastructure, right? You won't have to have everything at home base. If you want to have backups, or if you want to have redundancy at home base or multiple locations, that's great. But the accessibility to the cloud for the rest of the world is that much better. I'm going to pass it over to Max to cover the world of Microsoft.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I do want to mention the stuff that we are going to be going over today, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, those are included in most Microsoft subscriptions. So if you have a Microsoft subscription, there's a good chance that you have these features. I just wanted to point that out. It's not that what we're going over is not necessarily going to be add-ons or in addition to what you already have. Most people will already have these things we're talking about today. So the world of Microsoft, we're not going to go through this chart. Basically what I wanted to do is put this up here and really emphasize the fact that Microsoft is a beast on its own. It's a jungle to navigate, and things are always changing. You've got license types changing. You've got different features and add-ons changing. So what I really wanted to point out was Microsoft's not easy. I always joke people that if it was, I probably wouldn't have a job doing what I'm doing. So, we understand that, but that's why we are here. We're here for you guys. This is what we do on a day-to-day basis. So any questions, concerns, anything like that, we're here to help you guys with. There is, thousands of Microsoft SKUs. There's a lot of different combinations that you can get and put a package together that's 100% right for you and your company. But we can definitely help you with that. We do that all day. So we won't spend too much more time on this slide, but we understand it's definitely a big beast. Here is an example that I always kind of like to look at. These are going to be two different license types, and again, I'm not going to get into them too much, but these are completely two different license type with different features, but they're the exact same price. So it's not necessarily price that we're trying to go after, or it's not that we want to be buying our Microsoft based on price. It's going to be based on what you guys need. Either that's with compliance, or maybe there's just extra add-ons that you need. We'll be here to help you on with that and really get you guys the correct package for what you guys need, or the right license type for what you guys need. So we will continue there.
Awesome.
Fantastic. All righty. So again, we'll kind of start on talking about SharePoint. It is included in a lot of the license types. We are not going to get into SharePoint or OneDrive really in depth today. We're going to take this time more or less to go into depth with Teams, just based on popular demand. So we did want to point out a couple things though, like with SharePoint. SharePoint is and provides a central storage and collaboration space for your company. It helps groups of people, whether that's your work or your work team, or it could even be social groups. It allows them and helps them share information and more or less collaborate and work together. So a couple examples might be coordinating on projects and or calendars, schedules. It's a great place to discuss ideas amongst your team and review documents and proposals. And ultimately, it just keeps your team in touch around several different things. We at Pax8 heavily use SharePoint. We love it. I would say it's something that I kind of logged into it for the first time. I was like, well, this is kind of like a Facebook page with all these little like different features, and you can do this and this and really customize it for your company. So if you see here, this is obviously the Pax8's SharePoint, but we've added, we add updates in here, and this is again kind of internal stuff, but we'll have videos, we'll have links to ServiceNow for support, and you can add different stuff in here. This was a screenshot, or else I would scroll down. Down below is a calendar. It's a work calendar, so everybody, Memorial Day weekend was definitely on the calendar, and that day was off for everybody. But you can definitely collaborate. There's a lot of good stuff within here. So SharePoint's definitely something worth looking at. And again, if you're interested in what we're talking about, we're not going to go into too deeply today, but certainly, if this is something that sparks your interest, please let us know. We would love to get on another call with you, 30-minute call, hour call, whatever works best for you guys. Walk you through some of these features more in depth. So that's SharePoint, and let's see. We're
Awesome.
going to go into OneDrive. Thank you, Taylor.
I'll take over OneDrive. Yeah, SharePoint. Kind of the difference. Many questions people brought up was, what is the difference between SharePoint and OneDrive? How do you use them? It's a great question. The SharePoint how we've used it internally and how we've implemented it for our clients is really in kind of what Max was alluding to, is that kind of internal file sharing, project management tool where you have the ability to house a lot of documents and have either discussion and then build things on top of that. SharePoint has the ability to create, it really is an open architecture in a lot of ways, the ability to create a lot of things beyond just file sharing. And it has the ability for you to do that. OneDrive is more specifically for sharing and organizing your files, very similar to Dropbox or Box or those solutions. It doesn't have as much of the security features as we've seen in Dropbox or other solutions where you can get a little more of the enterprise solution security. That's why SharePoint actually, for us internally, we use it for file sharing and being able to share and collaborate on files, where OneDrive, we use it more for our personal files. And where I just store the stuff I'm only working on myself and maybe not something I want shared company-wide. That being said, OneDrive is a great solution for that, and it is also included in a lot of the subscriptions as well. So it's a great solution for personal files, where we've seen ShareFile be a great solution for if you do have currently like an on-prem server that you're storing files in, taking those files, putting them in SharePoint so that you can collaborate and use those internally in the cloud is pretty cool. And since it integrates with the rest of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, you can easily collaborate with Word documents and Excel documents like you can do in OneDrive. It has the same equivalent feature set in that way of being able to collaborate on an Excel document or a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation, which is pretty cool. And I really like using that. That's probably one of the biggest feature sets I like as far as SharePoint and OneDrive is obviously that, being able to collaborate on those tools. Next section, we're going to transition to talking about Microsoft Teams. Like we mentioned, we are going to do a live demo towards the end of Teams, and Tom is going to take us through and kind of show us some of the cool features of Teams and how you can use it. I'm going to talk about how kind of where it fits in your tech stack. There's a lot of tools. I think every 6 months, it seems like we have to add a new tool to our organization just based upon the needs of how technology is evolving. Solutions like Teams fits into that team collaboration, similar to solutions like Slack. Our organization actually used Slack previously. We used it for many years, and are still great fans of it, and encourage clients where it fits to use it. However, we've actually transitioned and moved over to Teams now because our infrastructure is so heavily integrated with the Microsoft 365 world that the benefits of having Teams versus Slack are just that much greater. And that's actually one really common question is why go to Teams versus Slack? And where we've landed is it's just since it's integrated with SharePoint and your files and your calendar and everything like that really well, the benefits of having it are just that much greater. That being said, Slack is a very slick collaboration tool, and they've dialed in that team collaboration. And what I mean by team collaboration is really a place where your organization internally can collaborate, meet, discuss, and a central place that you have a track record and a history of, and that's curated, organized, and directed. This screenshot is actually of Pax8's organization and some of the channels they have, some of the teams and discussions they have. And really what it is if you think about it, if you are a smaller organization, if you text your employees, or if your employees text each other about work, those types of conversations really should be in a centralized area that can be tracked, organized, and you have a history of, and you can collaborate more in depth. Texting, even though it's so quick, is really not the the best way to manage projects and tasks and things get lost. That's why solutions like Instant Messenger came in, and ultimately why collaboration tools like Slack and Teams. So really the idea is to be able to communicate quickly with the rest of your team about a certain discussion, or collaborate as a team, right? As a group, hence the name. It kind of grew out of the idea of, hey, let's get people working together, collaborating the most efficient way possible, right? So calls, video chat, text, documents, whatever it may be, let's have a central place where all that's coming to, so that way we can have as quick and as natural as collaboration as you could do if you were in person with somebody. So a lot of the benefits of collaboration obviously are kind of listed out here, and many of these are not familiar with, you guys are familiar with. We've experienced it with email, we've experienced it with phone calls, but collaboration tools like Teams have only exponentially increased. Why many of you are on the webinar today is because of that. Everyone's talking about it, or people are needing to rely on it. I know our organization, ever since the COVID pandemic, we have been doing, we've been working from home, our entire workforce, and we are doing weekly Teams calls and video chats, or doing a lot more of that now than ever, because we can't have in-person meetings. And so whether it's Teams, or whether it's Zoom, or whether it's a phone call, or whether it's text message or an email, we're all relying on these tools more, and ultimately they can save us time, right? It doesn't replace in person. It doesn't replace that natural feel of being in person with somebody. However, the idea is, hey, how can we eliminate as many obstacles as possible if we are remote? A couple of the features, things you can do are searching. You can search for keywords or things like that if you have a conversation with somebody. I know for us, we have multiple conversations, and if you use a tool like this for a while, you start getting a history of conversations and documents, and it's actually really helpful to be like, oh, we had that conversation. And what's interesting is in person, a lot of conversations are not tracked, right? Whether it's a water cooler conversation or an in-person meeting, that's okay, right? They all have to be tracked, and we don't necessarily want to track all of them. However, a lot of business decisions are made in those moments. And if you don't have a place to track them and have a way to search them and go back and be like, oh, what did I commit to my boss, or what did I commit to my team member or my employee? Great way to be able to search previous conversations and have a track record of your collaboration and of your work together. Another feature would be tagging. So things like very familiar, you guys are familiar with the idea of tagging in regards to social media, and being able to have, whether it's a particular topic that you want to tag and have a history of, or whether it's a particular subject that, that you want to have a history of, that you don't necessarily want to have a long-term, we don't have a team formed around it, but it's a discussion that maybe it's across numerous teams, and we want to track all that activity, and all the teams are talking about this one thing, and all these groups are talking about this one thing, and so eventually you want to be able to see, hey, who's talking about this? How can we track their activity? And if you want to have a cursory review of like, okay, this team is talking about that project, and they're talking about that project over there, that's awesome. They're obviously working on it, and I can go check out, and I can easily search a specific tag that people are discussing or working under. Another thing is recent chat view. This is something that's super helpful for just people who are trying to get a hold of you. Once again, this tool came out of a lot of the need for having that, I want to get a hold of somebody in under 30 seconds, right? And that's kind of where a phone call or a text message comes in when you're remote, or you go knock on their door, right? This is a version of that, and the recent view gives you the ability to see what's a priority, see who's available. I also love the ability to see who's on a phone call or who's in a meeting. So if your calendar is integrated with this, if you're using Microsoft Outlook and you have your calendar integrated, I can see if somebody's in a meeting. So maybe I won't message them right now. Maybe I'll wait till later. Or maybe I just won't expect to get a reply immediately, and there's a set expectation. The other cool thing is file sharing. Like we talked about with SharePoint, the ability to collaborate on documents and to quickly go back and forth and open up a document is really crucial, especially when you're doing a video chat with one of your team members or your boss. Your ability to open up a document and collaborate real time with one another is super important. And then across the team as well, right? So being able to upload a document and see it in Teams is super helpful. Awesome. A couple other things too, things that integrate with Teams. Once again, this tool is really designed for internal collaboration. There's some questions in the chat around why aren't we using this tool right now, which I'll definitely get to that in the Q&A. And where does this fit, and what are the other Microsoft tools that can integrate? So just like Slack and other tools, they're really trying to be a central hub for internal communication or a way for you to collaborate. So whether that's notifications from third parties, or whether that's, there's one thing we do where we have, if you have a specific code that you want resent, for a security code that you want resent to a specific team at a specific time when they log in, you can have that integrated with an Amazon or so on and so forth. And then the ability to integrate with other Microsoft products as well. Microsoft Teams has been around for a couple of years now, so it's a relatively new tool. And their collaboration, I would say, is actually a little bit far behind from my perspective than maybe Slack on its ability to collaborate with the rest of the world. That being said, you do have so much internally that you're able to collaborate with the Microsoft ecosystem that unless you're, and they're only adding more, whether it's a phone, whether you want to integrate your phone system or whether you want to integrate, other types of technology into your collaboration tool, project management tools or whatever. There's a social media, right? Social media manager for Hootsuite, or things like that. Teams is only adding more all the time. And, but like I said, the real value in our perspective is that you get access to the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem, and you can now collaborate between all those applications with your team internally, real time, individually and across groups and teams. Awesome. I'm going to pass it over to Max to talk about the future of Microsoft and where they're headed.
Fantastic. Awesome. So we've got just a few more slides here, and then we're going to turn it over to Tom to actually walk us through a Teams demo. But there was a couple questions around, what does the future of Microsoft look like? If I'm joining this company now, is it, what is it going to look like in 5 years? And I can just, like I said, 3 more quick slides. We'll get into the demo. But the future of Microsoft, we're seeing this large shift from Office 365 to Microsoft 365. And that's kind of where Microsoft is wanting people to shift over to as well. There's a few different reasons for that. So the first, obviously, would be that everything that M365 or that Office 365 has, Microsoft 365 also has it. But it's also going to do things like enables device management. It does come with a Windows 10 OS upgrade, which is a big deal if you guys are looking for that upgrade. I think that upgrade just itself is super, super expensive. So that does come with the license. And then of course, security. So those are a couple things. I'm going to touch really briefly on just device management and security really, really quickly. So when we're talking about device management, you've got Intune, which is a cloud-based enterprise mobility management tool that really helps organizations manage mobile devices that employees use to access company data and applications, such as email. So that's definitely a feature that Microsoft has, and these might someday be standard with all Microsoft products, but for now, these are in the Microsoft 365 category. If you have any questions with them, we can definitely get you information or get you on a call. But the other ones on here, obviously Azure Active Directory, which is just permissions and access. And then you've got single sign-on, which is essentially accessing multiple apps by logging in only once, which saves a lot of time. We use it at PAX8, very, very helpful. And then of course, Autopilot, something else that I want to touch on. It's a collection of technologies basically used to set up and pre-configure new devices for your company. So those are a couple features with M365. I do want to hit on security, just one minute, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tom, and we'll get going on this live demo. But with Microsoft 365 Security, this is something that as people are working remotely, and because they are on at-home networks, they are exposed to more risk. With Microsoft 365, it will come with things like safe links, safe attachments, spoof intelligence, which is really neat. So really heavily focused on security, making sure you guys are safe, making sure we're not getting, ransomware, phishing attacks, et cetera, et cetera. That's where the Microsoft is shifting to. They're really going to be focused on security moving forward and making sure all their users are as safe as possible. So with that being said, that's all I kind of wanted to touch on with Microsoft 365 and the future of Microsoft. Now we get into the fun part, which is the demo. And at this point, I will turn it over to Tom, who might be on mute.
Yep, was definitely double muted there. Perfect. Thank you for the handoff there, Max. Yeah, let me go ahead and share out my screen. And again, my name is Tom Welton. I'm a PAX8 Partner Solutions Engineer. Just typically a Microsoft guy, so doing a lot here in the M365. Kind of in the guts of all those portals that you guys just discussed there. Yeah, some of those AIP, ATP features. Some of the bells and whistles. Definitely getting pretty cool here. So perfect. So you guys should be able to see my Microsoft Teams. And then yeah, Max, can you see that there? I might use you as a test here.
Yes, you're good. Yep.
Perfect. Great. So this is what Microsoft Teams looks like, from a user perspective when you log in. I'm just using the web application, but there is a desktop version. So if you don't have that, you can just download that desktop app. I actually prefer the desktop app just because it's a little bit easier to use. And I've always got a million tabs open anyways with my day-to-day. So they do have desktop notifications, which you can turn on. So I'll go ahead and dismiss those. But then what we're looking at here, is a channel inside of a team. And so to kind of talk about the hierarchy, here are our teams. And so we have sales and marketing, Contoso is going to be one, digital, Mark 8. And then these kind of sections, these subfolders, these are the channels underneath it. And the limitations on these are pretty generous. So you can have up to 500,000 teams. And so quite literally 500,000 of these teams, and then 200 channels per team. So it's interesting. We do see some of our customers managing their own customers and client base through team. They just simply spin up a new team for every single one of their clients, and then they're able to manage some sub channels underneath it. But by default, you can see a couple of use cases for the different channels, general, monthly reports, just definitely staying targeted to what we need to talk about, just so that we stay on topic. And again, adding in, admin portals and things like that as far as configuration goes on the back end is definitely not a big lift by any means at all. So to, kind of showcase basic chat, posting a message 101, you can see there I'm my administrator, Megan's working on it. And then either my own messages or other messages, users can like it, so just a little bit of a, kind of an indication that they like it, they love it, happy, some kind of sad, frowny face stuff there, as well as some other options. You can see here, you can actually edit the messages if you made a typo or need to edit it on the fly. It's kind of the general chat functionality.
Used that one before.
Oh yeah, and then definitely as well, just being able to pivot between these. You see how this is dark black. Now that I've read it, it's kind of a notification letting me know that I haven't seen stuff before. So, I haven't been a Contoso general for a while, and be able to check it out there. And then kind of in addition to kind of speak on some of those slides there that Taylor touched on, up here at the top, we've got our post and our chat and everything, but then in addition to that, we have some other functionality. So our files are going to be loaded up here. If we've shared files specifically within the team, I'll definitely expand on that here in a little bit. The wiki's a great application of doing this, as well as adding those tabs. And so adding these tabs up here is where you can pin, either an application to the channel if they're using it. So, plenty of applications you can pin, but you can also pin files. And so that's what is a really, really great way that we're leveraging here at Pax8. My partner solutions team is just a small team. There's 10, 12 of us in a company of 400. There's a few documents that we're in every single day collaborating on. We just pin those to the top of our Microsoft team is the way that we do it. And then we're all able to just collaborate on that shared document and that shared document experience. Perfect. So, as far as the teams themselves as well, again, yeah, using Pax8 as an example, we're growing, close to 400 folks now. There's a lot of noise and things like that. So just ensuring that you get it all managed, as well as setting up the notifications, hiding channels and things like that that aren't relevant. But definitely organizing your teams is a great way to break up the work, but also include a little bit of, kind of that personal component to it. So, I can confirm Pax8 channels that exist include like a ticket giveaway one where if people have extra, tickets to music shows or something like that, they post it there for trade. There's a skiing and snowboarding group one, I think, just because we're out here in Denver, so folks going up to the mountains want to carpool or, share some buddy passes. All that, conversation stays siloed into those channels. The work stuff stays in the work stuff here, which is, awesome. So up here at the top, I'll kind of click through some of these side items. You get your activity feed. So if you come back after lunch, you can come in here, click on everything that's happened. If somebody tags you in there, so uses that Twitter functionality that they were talking about. So you at Megan and you can kind of, tweet her real quick. You click on her, she's going to get a notification, to look at this. So, she'll specifically get one there. As far as the chat features go, one-to-one chat is going to work, exactly how you guys would think, but just a few more bonus features and bells and whistles as well have been added. So here you can see actually is the read receipt. So this is a little check mark indicating that I've sent her a message. So it'll just update on the recent one. And then I'll turn into an eyeball actually once she's seen it. So you can turn these off and on the read receipts. It's a newer feature that's definitely pretty cool that's been added. And then as well, yeah, file sharing with it. So potentially if I wanted to share a file with Megan, send her something down here, can either upload it from my OneDrive or from my computer. So I'll go ahead and, leverage the existing OneDrive. And if I just need to send her a Word document real quick, I'll go ahead and share that. And you can see now this has been posted in here. She can click on it and it will open it inside the Teams, or you can open it up in the browser and desktop app, or directly download it or get the link. And so, a lot of flexibility with the collaboration tools here is, very, very impressive. And then as well, this is storing that for the future. So if I come back to Megan in 6 months, everything that we've ever shared in a personal conversation is listed here in the files. And Microsoft does ask you, if I share this employee engagement plan with Adele, another user, it'll ask me if I want to keep it or replace it. So potentially moving the file versus replacing the file, as well, just can kind of fill up your SharePoint there if you're just keeping both versions of it. Organization is a great one as well. And so Pax8 definitely leverages this. Again, 400 people. I don't know everybody in the company. I don't know who everybody works for in our company. Here's a great organization structure just to figure out who Megan is, where she sits in the chain of command. And so this is really a brilliant feature that I like is just, yeah, this organization is great for me just to determine who somebody is. As far as that, you can hover on the picture, get what her email address is. And then as far as taking the conversation further, so as this conversation evolves, we may not just want to chat anymore. I may need to give her a call. And so without doing anything special or, massively time consuming, I quite simply just click the button there for an audio call, click the button there for a video call, and that'll just automatically call her on Teams, to be able to have that conversation audio, or just go ahead and turn on that video camera. And then as well, we can loop people into the conversation. So let's tell Megan that, and then we'll just go ahead and we'll add people to it here. So maybe we'll just go ahead and search for Adele as my other user here, and we'll add her to the conversation. And you can see her on the left side, it's siloed it out. So I still have my individual with Adele, my individual with Megan, but now I have one with Megan and Adele. And then if we add a fourth person as well, you can catch up with chat history. So we'll do our first post there, and then maybe we want to loop in just somebody else to the team, Alex, and then we want to catch up Alex with everything. So we can either include the chat history or not include the chat history, or just the previous day kind of stuff. So, kind of project management stuff in here is very, very easy to organize these chats. And again, everything stays very, very separate and clean over here in the Teams. Perfect, yeah, so Teams and everything I covered here, the calendar features are definitely worth mentioning, just because this integrates very, very successfully with your existing Outlook and ports over your Outlook calendar. And so here you can see, I've actually got my Outlook meetings You can curate a Teams meeting directly from here. Just show you what this panel looks like. Very, very easy to set up a meeting. And then this will email that out to the user. And you guys may have seen what those Teams meetings look like. Join Teams meeting here. It'll just email them that link. We'll attach it automatically to them. And then as well, you guys may have noticed a join button. So if there's a meeting that's currently going on, you don't have to actually open up that email or anything. You can click join, and this is going to open up the meeting. I wonder, with my screen share, how work here for it. So I'm just going to click done here. Perfect. Oh, I guess it's one of my permissions, but yeah, you can join right in. And again, you get a little pre-staging, so you can turn off audio and video before diving into the room to use these chat features. And that's something that Taylor and I were talking about as well, just before the call here, is just the amount of stuff they've added to Teams. And so definitely launching new things. You guys may have noticed the Brady Bunch view is in there, so you can have more than 4 concurrent tiles. You can see, I think, 8 or 9 people up there now. So it's definitely adding some features. There's some really kind of slick custom backgrounds or blurred backgrounds that are really neat as well. Calling is kind of an interesting perspective from this as well. So, Teams to Teams calling is free. There's no such thing as minutes or anything like that. You can add people to speed dials and quite simply just click on them. But over time, you'll just build up your speed dials. So everybody on my partner solutions team is actually my speed dials, just because I'm talking to those guys the most. And then as well, just down here, you see some extra white space. There are additional add-ons, and so they would be additional licensing. I won't go too much into it, but those are known as the phone systems and the audio conferencing. And then there's a domestic and international calling plan. So if you did want to go full VoIP, the technology allows for it. So it allows for direct routing, and just, full VoIP capabilities, including number assignment, number porting, all that good stuff as well. Clicking onto the files again, files it's going to track ones that you've stored from your computer, but also access to your OneDrive. So again, it's very clean, and it's all within that Microsoft ecosystem. And so that's really the driving component to using Teams, over Slack or Rocket Chat or something like that with similar functionality, is because this user, exists on Active Directory. So they're umbrellaed under the Microsoft. From a management perspective, it's much easier to, learn that Teams admin portal, and they'll be protected. So, we are talking about the Microsoft 365 package, and Microsoft has added, of those bells and whistles, extra security layers. So anything that you can slap a security layer onto those OneDrive and SharePoints, you can now protect Teams. And so Teams is all protected as far as the file storage, data retention, e-discovery, any of that good stuff that's leveraged in the other portals absolutely exists here in Teams as well. And then, last but not least, is you can add in, custom applications. And so including the Office 365 suite, as well as the greater ecosystem of it. But an interesting use case, we did have a customer of ours was using this Shifts application to track their employees' times. It was a great application of it there. But perfect, that, more or less covers this entire demo here in a nutshell. And, Max and Taylor, I might turn it back over to you guys unless, there were any outstanding questions I can answer.
Thanks, Tom, that was great. Yes, we will transition now into our Q&A. And first, I want to thank Tom. That was super interesting. 2 things I learned I didn't know. First one being that the organizational chart, I don't think I've really played around with that a lot. And then the second thing being the chat history. I think that's super cool to be able, just like an email, to be able to get people up to speed on a project. I can't tell you how many times, you'll go back and forth, up to 30 times to discuss, a very complex problem with either a client, a team member, and you may want to share that with somebody, right? You may need to share it with your boss or share it with whoever, and being able to have a track record of those internal conversations and then quickly being able to get people up to speed on, hey, we've already gotten this far, review the notes and jump in where you're at. Super cool, just like kind of an email capability in that way. Really like that. We got a bunch of great questions came in today, and also the ones that are pre-submitted. So we have a couple that were pre-selected, and then also some ones that have come in just over the past few minutes. One of the ones that was great, and I'd love for Max and Tom to jump in, but how do we find out if our current Microsoft 365 package has SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams?
Great question. Yeah, Tom, do you want to take this?
Sure. Yeah. So it,
Okay.
quite simply just log into your portal.office.com, and that'll be the admin portal. And if you see it as an available portal, then you have it. It is just a very, very easy way to check it. So it's just going to be among those portals on the bottom left side. By default, you'll have Exchange, which is the mailbox one. But in addition to that, you'll see things like the Endpoint Manager is the Intune portal, but then you'll see SharePoint, OneDrive, and the Teams portals are all there just on that portal.office.com.
Great question. I would say, if you are not 100% sure about that, that's why Taylor's here. Please reach out to him, and he will absolutely help let you know what you have, what it comes with, and all that good information. So
Perfect. Thanks, Max. Thanks, Tom. Yep, that's great. And I think ultimately, yeah, go in there. You can look at your plans in particular. But if you want to review the licenses and to see what you're currently using, we'll provide some information at the end of this webinar where you can reach out to us and we can help you just review what you currently have in place, answer your basic questions. And then if you do want to replace or change your plan, you can purchase Microsoft through us, and we can provide you all those details as well. Another great question is Google Drive, Dropbox. How do they compare to OneDrive? And I'll tackle this one. I personally love Google products, and I've used them for almost 15 years of working professionally. And we moved over to Microsoft over the past couple years. So I'm a big fan of Google, love their products, love Google Drive, the simplicity of it, and how seamless it integrates with Gmail and so on and so forth. However, ultimately, the Microsoft ecosystem, especially when it comes to Excel, Word, and PowerPoint, still being enterprise level solutions that provide levels of security, collaboration, that unfortunately Google Drive just isn't there. It doesn't have the level, really, from the security standpoint, of being able to collaborate and being able to securely share things. Google Drive has pretty limited currently for that. Next question is, and I kind of hit on this before, is how does Teams compare to Slack? Max or Tom, do you guys want to comment on this?
Sure. Yeah, I honestly just haven't used Slack in a couple of years, so I won't particularly be able to dive into feature comparison. But maybe if there's a particular feature that you're looking for in Slack, or that you have in Slack that maybe you're looking for the analog in Teams, I can maybe touch on that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that from our perspective, I think I mentioned this earlier. From the Slack standpoint, if you are using Microsoft products, Teams is a good fit. If you're using Google products or something else, Slack may be a great team collaborator. That being said, if you're heavily invested in the Microsoft ecosystem and you see the benefits of using all of the Office suite and et cetera, then Teams makes sense from our standpoint and what we've recommended to our clients and what we've used internally. Next great question that came in is, why are we not using Teams as a platform for this presentation? Awesome question. I'll answer it, and I'd love to hear Tom's and Max's response as well. From our perspective, the reason why we do not host on Teams is really designed for, from our perspective, internal collaboration. It does work for, if you wanted to invite a client to join, but for doing large scale events like this, where we have 100+ people or hundreds of people joining, interacting, Q&A, you really want a specific webinar tool for that. So what we have found is Microsoft Teams really works well for internal collaboration and some external collaboration with clients and vendors and so on and so forth. Whereas Zoom, which is what we're using currently, Zoom Webinar, Zoom is an awesome platform. We use it a lot for external communication, video chat being one of them, and then webinars being another one, where being able to do those specific things on a large scale with clients or third parties outside of your organization, Zoom and vendors like that just do it really well. There's a lot of vendors out there too, GoToMeeting, so on and so forth, that have solutions like that are really great for webinars. That being said, Teams, it does work for third parties. I know we actually use it a lot with vendors and or people that are in our industry, mostly because it really works well if somebody is using Teams. So if somebody's using, if somebody already is using Teams, right? So you know your vendor is using Teams, or you know your client's using Teams, Microsoft Teams, then setting up a meeting and using it is much easier, more seamless from what we've seen. That being said, doing large scale events, we have found Teams is not designed for that. Max, Tom, any additional comments or thoughts on that?
No, you hit the nail on the head perfectly there with it. Yeah, Zoom just has a little bit more of that webinar functionality for the larger events. Things like the panelists and the attendees kind of, splitting up, and the Q&A sections are just a little bit more robust. But Microsoft, is achieving that feature parity. So if you really do need to host these solutions on Teams, it absolutely is available. And so a couple of different ways you could do that is you can leverage something called the audio conferencing add-on. And that allows whoever's licensed with it to host a meeting for up to 250 people, either internally or externally. And so you can send this out to clients that don't have Teams. You can send them an invite, and they can join that meeting for up to 250 people. It is a great license. That's called audio conferencing. And then there's another product as well that I'm not as familiar with, but it's known as live events. And so if it's like Microsoft Live Events or Teams Live Events, and that's how you would host something for up to like 10,000 people, I believe, is the max attendees on that one. If you're really scaling it out.
I think we had Tom. I think we had a comment in the chat of somebody mentioning live events being a great solution for that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Max, any thoughts in addition for Teams and in relation to large events?
No, I think you hit it right on. Yeah, we probably don't have to spend more time on that, but you guys are right on with that.
Awesome. Another question came in: can messages be deleted from Teams?
Yes, absolutely. And so, you just right-click the message, and you can, simply delete it. It'll leave like a little watermark that says deleted, so the user will know that, something's been deleted. Potentially you could edit a message and delete everything, so there's a blank box there. But then on the other side of stuff as well, if somebody's trying to hide something, that will be tracked. And so that's another benefit to using Teams, is that potentially with these other third-party chat applications, Slack, Rocket Chat, AOL Instant Messenger, whatever it is, you may end up with a shadow IT situation, and your employees either passing data, or conversations that you want tracked or locked down kind of stuff. And you can do that all through Teams. Very, very effectively, and things like the SharePoint permissions work as well. And so that's a, kind of an interesting feature. If I share a document, it'll indicate and note, because it's tied into SharePoint, that, hey, this recipient doesn't have permissions. Would you like to give permissions? And I can do that right out of the Teams portal, which is definitely a great feature just to be able to collaborate on it. But then, kind of worst case scenario, if something did happen and I needed to go into those chat logs, things like the e-discovery and things like that, the one-to-one chats, they are all stored somewhere on the back end. It gets pretty complicated just depending on who you're talking to and what you're sharing. It's stored in a couple of different places, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams, but it is all available. But yes, to kind of circle back to the original question, you can delete a line item in there, if you need to.
Great, that's fantastic. Thanks, Tom. Another question that came in, kind of in relation to the regulatory. How does, if you are in a regulated industry, whether it's HIPAA or FINRA, how does Teams work in regards to being compliant and security, and in regards to being similar to like emails, for example, having to be tracked, having to be sent through a third party for review?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be covered in identical fashion to OneDrive and SharePoint. So just as I kind of discussed earlier, the AIP, Azure Information Protection, and ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, are two of those bells and whistles that come with the M365 package. When you go up there, you can curate policies inside there to protect, I call it data at rest and data on the go. And so you do things like a DLP policy, data loss prevention, where maybe you're flagging sensitive info. So maybe you prevent users from sending a social security number, or at least you can encrypt that email, and all that is going to be identically tracked through Teams, through that way as well, and kind of protected and layered onto, the same way you'd protect OneDrive and SharePoint.
Great. Yep, that's fantastic. Thanks for the answer. Yeah. Another question that came in was, how do I want to understand how we can move our server to SharePoint. I can briefly talk on this, and feel free to jump in, Max and Tom. From our perspective, what we've seen SharePoint be really effective in is hosting and file sharing, and having a really secure file sharing internally and collaboration internally. So as far as hosting specific applications in SharePoint or things like that, maybe that's probably getting into the Azure directory and other forms of cloud-hosted servers and things like that. That being said, for specifically, if you are using a server on-premise to share files, to store files, to backup files, SharePoint has been is a great tool for that. Migrating that is a process depending on your server, really how it's set up, the complexity of its setup. From the SharePoint standpoint, it's pretty simplistic. It really depends on what technology stack you have in place right now, what server you have set up. Awesome, fantastic. Maybe we'll do one more question and then we will wrap up here because we're up on the hour. The last question being, the last one being kind of the subscriptions. How do we find out what our subscription packages are? And that question I think we answered earlier, and this will tie us kind of right into our end here. You can go online and look at the admin portal, like Tom was mentioning, and if you need help with that, feel free to reach out to us. But just generally speaking, if you have IT issues, or if your IT provider needs help navigating the Microsoft ecosystem, we're not only Microsoft resellers, but we're also an IT advisory firm. So we're able to provide, not only help you get Microsoft and acquire Microsoft, but we can also help you implement it and help you navigate it. So a lot of times what happens in these situations are, a lot of our clients is we're actually coming to them and recommending to them SharePoint or Teams. Because we've used it, or we've implemented it, or we've seen where it's worked. Navigating the complexity of Teams and SharePoint, and when to use it and when not to use it, is a challenge. And if you need an IT provider, or if your IT provider needs extra support, please reach out to us at the email on the screen. Tom and Max, thanks so much for joining us today. Super great talking to you. It was enjoyable to learn from both of you guys through this process. And in the future, obviously, people can reach out to me. And then if you guys do need an expert to come in, we will bring a Max or Tom along the way, because we rely heavily on them to provide us expertise in Microsoft technology. There's a lot of technology out there, right? And we need experts just like you need experts to rely on for technology. So thank you all for joining today. This webinar was recorded and will be sent out here in the next couple days. If you do have additional questions about anything we talked about, feel free to reach out. Thanks so much. We appreciate you, and take care.